Reifenhart used to be the greatest 10th circle mage in history, but he just woke up in a body that has more muscle than brain cells. His new master, a silverback gorilla of a man named Gerard, follows a simple philosophy: humans are like steel, the more you beat them, the stronger they become. It's the most aggressive frame-mogging journey in history, where the secret sauce for that physique is simply being tied to a tree and then getting beaten to death all day every day. But to understand how a legendary mage ended up as a human punching bag, we need to go back to where it all began. Everything starts in the capital of the Antares Empire, which is currently being turned into a giant, city-sized barbecue. A soldier reports the terrible numbers to his commander. From the magic attacks and the final summoning alone, 200,000 soldiers are dead. Another 300,000 are badly hurt. The humans actually believe this is fine, since they see it as a necessary sacrifice to get rid of all evil. Inside the great demonic palace, 5 legendary heroes finally corners Emperor Reifenhart. You'd expect a terrifying demon lord, but our boy just looks like he hasn't slept in weeks and is completely done with their drama. Hero Alex steps forward to announce that the villain's reign ends today, while Sword Saint Cyrus starts yapping about sins and divine punishment. They're convinced that if they kill the Demon King, all the monsters he created will just vanish. Reifenhart tries to explain that he never created monsters. He simply taught oppressed races how to survive human aggression. Leaning forward, he asks about the fate of his subordinates, the 4 heavenly kings. Cyrus smugly confirms that all dirty orcs are no match for his sword, which leaves the emperor devastated. He can't believe the brave great warrior Tathid is dead. Truthfully, the orc wasn't a monster, but a chill hunter who spent his life protecting the weak. The news only gets worse as Teslan, the martial king, brags about killing Garut, a peaceful troll who just loved nature, and the Saintess adds that the evil dwarf Michelin, who worshipped the god of darkness, has also been brought to justice. Finally, Jade the mage delivers the crushing blow, revealing that the dark elf Cirrus has also fallen to his magic. That's the moment our boy officially loses it. He calls them all absolute idiots and reveals the truth. Cirrus was a high elf. Her skin only looked dark because humans burned her forests and forced her people to live under the scorching sun. Since logic clearly isn't working on these heroes, Reifenhart decides to give them the monster they're looking for. He blasts his mana, and half the room explodes in purple flames. We get a quick flashback. Our boy remembers his past. He started as a simple human mage, but he was shocked to discover the forgotten deep cultures of the so-called monsters, and spent time interacting with them. Reifenhart combined spirit magic and sorcery to become the first 10th circle mage in history. He built this empire just to save them. The fight starts and hero Alex charges in. The mage looks at him with pity. Alex tries to do everything but is a master of nothing. One simple gravity spell sends the hero flying across the room, instantly knocked out. Truth is, the strongest warriors are those who focus on one thing, and sadly there is one specialist in the room, Martial King Teslan. This guy is a physical beast who clearly skipped the tutorial and put every single stat point into strength. The Martial King charges at Reifenhart, smashing the spot where he stood a second ago. Our boy barely dodges, thinking, this guy's gonna be a nightmare to beat. After a wild back and forth, the fight spills outside the castle. Teslan smashes through the magical shield like it's made of paper and lands a heavy blow on the Emperor's head. Blood runs down his face, but Reifenhart tries to bluff, claiming he blocked the attack with magic. But the damage is obvious. Our MC realizes his spine is broken and knows there is zero chance of winning this fight. Teslan stands opposite him and declares that he is about to send him to judgment. He adds that the others will finally be free of their demonic restraints. Our boy realizes that to the Martial King, freedom just means returning them to slavery. Refusing to let it end like this, Reifenhart uses his last bit of energy to activate the Eye of Time and Space, a mysterious artifact he found in ancient ruins. Even as a 10th circle mage, he doesn't fully understand how it works, but he knows it can turn back time. Teslan panics and tries to crush him, but it's too late. A blinding light swallows the entire capital, and the sounds of war are suddenly replaced by birds singing. Our protagonist wakes up and immediately notices something is definitely off. He looks down at his own body and damn, looking at that physique, most gym bros would cry tears of envy. But Reifenhart is absolutely horrified. He looks at his hands, completely confused about whose body this is. He thinks it's ridiculous, believing that a mage only needs magic skills and that having a six-pack is totally useless. It's weird for him to judge his own appearance, but he clearly remembers being a legend back in his prime. A guy whose handsome face was enough to make even elves go crazy for him. He starts to freak out, worried the regression spell messed up and put him in the wrong person, but the face looking back is too recognizable to ignore. The thick eyebrows and square jaw tell him everything he needs to know. He's somehow become a younger version of the indomitable Martial King Teslan. Suddenly a voice booms from outside, calling Teslan's name. The door to the little cabin creaks open, and a massive giant of a man has to practically fold himself in half just to squeeze through the doorframe. He yells that the sun is already high in the sky and demands to know why Teslan isn't outside yet. Reifenhart is so terrified he can barely speak, but the old man just looks at him like he's lost his mind. He's heard the "I have amnesia" excuse twice already and isn't falling for it again. And just like that, the giant grabs the guy's head and drags him outside to start training. It doesn't take long for Reifenhardt to realize he's dealing with Gerard, the continent's strongest martial artist, and the legendary former martial king. But he can't even ask for an autograph because he's currently strapped to a massive tree, completely unable to move. When he tries to beg for mercy, the old man just tells him to shut up and starts beating the living daylights out of him with a massive wooden staff. Meanwhile, Gerard notices something is off. Teslan's muscles feel softer than before. He wonders if the amnesia is actually real this time. But in their clan, Gym Unbreakable, the training is so idiotic and excessive that losing your short-term memory is actually a pretty common side effect. Gerard even lost his own memory a few times in the past. So his solution is simple. He figures his disciple will feel better after getting beat up some more. And he proceeds to mercilessly strike the poor guy who is still helpless against the tree. As Reifenhardt cries out for help, Gerard starts lecturing him on why humans use weapons. To the old man, tools are just a pathetic excuse for people who are too weak to overcome their limits. He drops some insane logic, claiming that humans are just like steel. The more you beat them, the stronger they become. Finally, the sun sets. The training went on all day. Gerard looks at the battered, bruised disciple and says with a satisfied face that they are done for today and he should go inside and rest. Later, our boy's soaking in a wooden tub, but this isn't just hot water. He realizes the water is filled with garrel leaves and petals. He's shocked. A single bottle of healing potion costs 10 silver coins, but here he is, marinating in a whole bathtub full of the stuff. He asks Gerard about the bath, and the old man explains the method. You have to cool steel down after hammering it. They push the body to the brink of death and then force an immediate recovery using aura and rare plants. It's the only way to get stronger without the body breaking down permanently. Reifenhardt finally understands. The training wasn't completely insane. It explains why the original Teslan was so tough when they fought in the future. Now that he has a moment to think, he's certain this is the past. But that raises a massive question. What happened to the real Reifenhardt of this timeline? Can two identical souls exist in the same dimension? He comes up with two hypotheses. First, that his future self and his young self are just coexisting in the world. Or second, and this is the scary part, that inside the young Reifenhardt's body right now is the soul of Martial King Teslan. The nightmare continues for the poor mage. The morning routine kicks off with Gerard serving him enough meat to feed a small army. Then the old man cheerfully announces a light jog to digest the meal. But this light jog turns out to be a sprint up a mountain that is basically a vertical wall. Between the torture sessions, our MC starts analyzing his situation. He's convinced he's reincarnated into the past version of Teslan, and the idea of meeting his younger self actually terrifies him. There's this universal rule that each soul must be unique, so if two identical souls ever meet, one of them might just vanish into thin air. He figures his teenage self is likely safe studying in the Delphia Magic Tower, but he worries that the real Teslan might now be inhabiting his original weak body. So Reifenhardt decides his top priority is to escape this mountain immediately. That night, he finally makes his move. But just as he thinks he's successfully sneaking away, he freezes. Gerard is already chilling on a rock right in front of him, asking where he thinks he's going. The old man simply notes that his disciple had been quiet for a month or two, but this is already the 9th escape attempt. Desperate, Reifenhardt decides to try the truth, claiming he isn't Teslan but a mage named Reifenhardt. Gerard just laughs it off as another creative backstory. He reminds him that last time he claimed to be from another world, and before that, a reincarnated martial master. The old man admits that being a mage is at least a bit more convincing than the others, but he still drags him back to bed. Reifenhardt doesn't give up easily, telling himself he will succeed eventually, but Gerard is always one step ahead. Whether Reifenhardt tries sneaking through bushes on his tiptoes or swimming underwater, Gerard catches him every single time. The old man actually sympathizes, admitting he tried to escape too when he was a disciple. He reveals that Gym Unbreakable has 130 years of disciple escape prevention methods. In all that history, there hasn't been a single student who didn't try to fake an illness or run away. Reifenhardt finally realizes it's hopeless. Even if he managed to slip away, this monster of a man would chase him to the ends of the earth. He accepts his fate. The only way down is to get official permission. And just like that, 2 hellish years pass by. Then a breakthrough happens. Gerard shouts with joy that his disciple has finally awakened his aura. Reifenhardt is stunned. He knows that even the legendary Sword Saint Cyrus only awakened his aura in his late 20s. Yet here he is, not even 20 years old, achieving this massive milestone. Gerard explains that their training is designed to push survival instincts so far that the will to live literally manifests as physical energy. Reifenhardt gets excited, hoping this means they can finally do some normal martial arts, or that he can finally leave. Instead, Gerard just smiles and announces they're going to start sparring. Naturally, this leads to more beatings. Another 3 years pass, making it 5 years total since he woke up in this body. Reifenhardt is now deep in the mountains, focused on mastering the Calamity Horn. It's a technique where one channels all their aura into a single spot to strike a blow. He's trying to reach the 4th superposition. The original Teslan maxed out at 7 and Gerard can do 8, but Reifenhardt just needs the 4th level to earn his ticket off the mountain. One day, while Gerard is down in the village getting drunk, Reifenhardt is training alone. He decides to take a break from the physical grind and try something else. He attempts to use magic, chanting arrow bullet and visualizing a bullet made of air. But the result is pathetic. The spell barely scratches the tree in front of him. Reifenhardt is frustrated. Even though his mind remembers all the complex magic formulas perfectly, Teslan's stone-like body has 0 mana sensitivity. It's like trying to run high-end software on a toaster. Just as he's complaining about his weak magic, he senses a strange energy nearby. It's not human. He turns to see an orc walking along the forest path toward him. The creature looks exhausted and stammers out that the human should pretend he didn't see him, promising not to kill him in return. Reifenhardt immediately analyzes the situation. Despite the scary look, he realizes the creature is just a young runaway trying to negotiate his way out of being killed. Our MC decides to speak to him in the language of grace, asking if he's being chased. The orc is completely stunned that a human knows their tongue. Reifenhardt casually explains he had a fateful encounter once, and the orc, touched by this genuine kindness, immediately calls him brother. But there's no time for a bromance, because the chasers are closing in. Reifenhardt tells the orc to trust him. He decides to use his magic to conceal the orc inside a hollow in the rock that he had created during his training. The orc is completely shocked, unable to comprehend how a man with such a physique could be a mage, but he gratefully accepts the help and hides. Seconds later, a group of mercenaries shows up. They're already cranky, complaining that hunting a runaway is barely worth the pocket change they're getting paid. They spot Reifenhardt and try to bribe him with a gold coin. Of course, it's a scam. They clearly plan on taking the money back once he talks. But our boy doesn't even flinch. He's not about to betray a new friend for a single coin. Unfortunately, our MC realizes his basic magic was a bit sloppy, as he forgot to clear the footprints leading right to his position. When the mercenaries see the tracks, he tries to bluff, telling them it's his private property and they aren't invited. They just laugh, calling him a backwoods brat, though even they have to admit his physique is insane. They try to push past him and Reifenhardt realizes a fight is unavoidable. He remembers Gerard's twisted philosophy, that since his bare fists are deadly enough to kill with a single swing, using a weapon is actually an act of mercy because it creates a buffer. So following this logic, he rips up a massive stone pillar to use as a club, telling them not to worry if he hits them with this, they won't die. The mercenaries are confused. Did this kid just grab a giant stone pillar? But before they can process it, Reifenhardt swings. The Jim Unbreakable weapon style isn't even meant for actual combat. It's a training method designed for 100% offense, aimed at striking every single part of the opponent's body. The mercenaries try to fight back. One of them attempts to slash him from behind, but the blade literally bounces off his skin and bends in several places. Even our boy is shocked. He's starting to wonder if he's even human anymore. After the dust settles, the mercenary leader is on the ground, moaning in pain. He begs for help and asks for the name of the rascal who beat him. Reifenhardt decides it wouldn't be fair for the leader to feel left out while his friends are all taking a nap, so he gives him a little more of a beating before telling him to get lost. As the mercenaries scramble away, Reifenhardt has a scary realization. He actually enjoyed beating them up. He wonders if he should take in some disciples later just to beat them. The orc comes out of hiding and bows, vowing to repay the favor. Reifenhardt wonders if a warrior should bow so easily, but the orc insists that our MC is now his mentor. In orc culture, a mentor is like a lord to a knight. When asked for his name, our hero stops himself from saying Teslan and introduces himself properly as Reifenhardt Wald Antares. He tells the orc to head to the land of trails to find the Blue Bear tribe. As they part ways, the orc reveals his name, Tathid. Reifenhardt freezes. He knows that name. This runaway is the future great warrior and one of the 4 heavenly kings. Realizing that the original Teslan would have never helped an orc, our boy watches the future legend walk away, knowing that he has officially changed the course of fate. Another 6 months fly by since the strange encounter with the orc. We jump straight into the action with Gerard launching powerful chi bullets at his disciple. Reifenhardt complains that this is getting a bit out of hand, but he instantly pops a spiral guard to block the attack. The defense holds perfectly, and Gerard is thrilled, declaring that his student's technique has finally peaked. The old man gets a bit nostalgic, laughing about how Reifenhardt used to insist he was a mage. It's hard to believe it's already been 10 years since this brutal journey started. However, Gerard still has one major complaint. Reifenhardt is too small. Our MC is confused, arguing that he is over 190 centimeters tall, which is huge by normal standards. But to Gerard, whose ancestors at Jim Unbreakable were towering monsters over 2 meters tall, Reifenhardt looks like a total hobbit. Suspicious, Gerard asks if he is consistently following the breathing technique he taught him. Reifenhart dodges the question, blaming his genetics, but in reality, he intentionally skipped it. He's a mage at heart and refuses to become an absolute unit and sacrifice his normal human proportions. Finally, it's time for the graduation test. Reifenhart gathers all his energy and unleashes the fourth superposition of the Calamity Horn. The strike triggers a massive explosion that literally splits the earth, leaving Gerard laughing in pure delight. The training is officially over. The old man turns serious for a moment, telling Reifenhart he's free to do whatever he wants, be a saint or a villain, it doesn't matter. That freedom is his hard-earned reward. But before he leaves, Gerard shares 3 key teachings he learned from his own master, Rastal, 60 years ago. First, if you're going to be a villain, have some style and don't be a cheap thief. Second, he should stand by the side of the unjustly treated, not necessarily the weak, because the world is full of people weaker than you. And third, and most importantly, he must continue the martial legacy of Jim Unbreakable by finding a disciple. Then comes the parting gift. Reifenhart opens a pouch expecting a life-changing fortune, only to find 30 silver coins. He thought the former martial king would be loaded, but Gerard casually blames inflation, explaining they had to raise the departure fee from 25 to 30 silvers. However, he does give him a map to a hidden present located in the Settelard Mountains. As Reifenhart descends the mountain, still wondering if his freedom is a dream, Gerard stands at the peak and lets out one final manly farewell, firing a massive blast of energy into the sky as a salute to his only student. But the vibe changes quickly as we shift to a nearby village. The village chief is nervously asking a group of knights to pay for the food they have eaten. One of them, Sir Edward, looks at the old man with pure disgust and tosses a single gold coin at him like he's doing the peasants a massive favor. When the chief points out that it is far from enough to cover the costs, Edward snaps. He calls the chief shameless for questioning a noble and punches the old man square in the face. The villagers watch in fear, realizing these knights are just bandits with fancy titles. Suddenly, another voice cuts in, asking Sir Edward what is the matter. It's the young lord, Stefan. Instead of scolding his knight, he looks down at the scene with cold eyes, calling the peasants worthless trash who have forgotten their place. The story takes us back into a flashback from Reifenhart's past life. We see him lying in bed with Cirrus, the dark elf, and it's clear they were lovers. Back then, he had a thin, refined body that Cirrus described as sharp and precise, like a well-made blade. But then reality hits like truckun. He wakes up, looks in a mirror, and sees a stone golem staring back. He apologizes to Cirrus in his head, though he admits, "At least I'm taller now." He gets down to business and starts planning. He calculates that the Cirrus of this timeline would be 70 years old, which is about 17 in human years. She is currently in Chrome, but next year she will be sold at the Chiton slave auction. He briefly considers just destroying the auction site to free her, but quickly dismisses the idea, acting that recklessly would make it impossible to regain his magical powers peacefully. He decides the best option is to solve this with money. The problem is the elf slaves are crazy expensive, and right now our boy is dead broke. Luckily, he has this powerful body, his martial techniques, and most importantly, his memories of the future. He recalls that there is an ancient ruin on the way to Chiton. In his previous life, a mage named Todd from the Delphia Tower explored those ruins with the Altian family. Reifenhart remembers that Todd's party missed the real treasure, which Reifenhart found later. 3 days later, he heads north toward the Hotton Mountains. He uses a secret technique called artificial flashback, which allows him to revive buried memories from any point in time, letting him perfectly recall the map and details of the ruins. He arrives at a place called Cattle Village, which looks exactly as he remembers. The vibe in the village is super tense. The villagers are terrified because a group of nobles is demanding a guide to the Valley of Death, a dungeon so dangerous that no one ever returns. A local man named Ted eventually volunteers just to save the other villagers, even as his family begs him to stay. Suddenly, Reifenhart's massive face appears in the window like a scene from a horror movie. He casually offers to take the job, scaring the absolute daylight out of poor Ted. The villagers warn him that no one has ever come back alive from the Valley of Death, but Reifenhart simply tells them he has already been there. He thinks they should be grateful since he is literally saving their lives. Our boy reflects on the ruins' history. 50 years ago, a famous knight named Claude Altion died there and lost the demonic sword Altion, the family's greatest symbol. Since then, the Altions have been obsessed with finding it. Later, Reifenhart joins the expedition and spots the team's leader, Stefan, who is likely Claude's grandson. The party also includes an elf named Lelsia and a young saint named Sillon, who is so pretty that Reifenhart genuinely has to double-check if he's a boy or a girl. And then there's his old friend Todd the Mage. He thinks about saying hello, but after seeing Todd deep in conversation and sensing a strange vibe between them, he decides to keep his distance. For a second, he wonders if Todd is up to something shady, but dismisses the thought, telling himself that Todd is a good guy. He clearly isn't. One of the knights in a red cloak approaches Reifenhart, telling him he made a wise choice to guide them. The knight notes that the rest of the villagers were too terrified to take the job. which he finds ridiculous since they are being escorted by the kingdom's brave soldiers. Our MC just listens to him and thinks that there really isn't a knight in the world who isn't full of himself. Suddenly, the party is ambushed by a swarm of harpies. The knights shout to get into formation, Lord Stefan orders the attack, and Todd launches a fire chain spell while Sillin buffs everyone with holy magic. Reifenhart watches from the sidelines and admits they aren't bad for mages and knights, but compared to a real martial artist like Master Gerard, their skills are pathetic. While the main force is distracted, one of the harpies dives toward the defenseless porters in the back. Without making a sound and while no one is paying attention to him, our boy steps in and obliterates the monster with a single casual punch. He spots the red flag immediately. While Stefan is busy slashing at monsters like a hero in a fairy tale, he totally ignores his own soldiers getting grabbed by harpies right next to him. Reifenhart realizes that while Stefan might not be evil in the traditional sense, he is definitely a garbage leader who treats his subordinates like NPCs. In contrast, the young priest Sillin screams for everyone to take cover behind the trees. During the chaos, sharp feathers rain down on our protagonist. He gets a bit cocky, standing still and letting them bounce off his iron skin without a scratch. He thinks to himself that these attacks are pathetic, but karma strikes instantly. A feather flies past his guard and hits him right in the eye. It hurts like hell, and he wonders if he's even capable of crying after Gerard's brutal training. Luckily, thanks to his monstrous durability, he's fine, but his ego definitely took a hit. After the fight, Stefan's true colors show again. He specifically asks if the mages and priests are safe, completely ignoring the injured soldiers and porters. When he hears that the important folks are fine, he proudly declares victory and tells everyone to rest, proving he really doesn't give a damn about the commoners. Reifenhart decides to use the break to chat with Todd. He thanks him for the help and casually mentions that he has a friend at the Delphia Magic Tower named Reifenhart, but Todd reacts in the weirdest way possible. He calls the boy cute and kind. Our MC is confused and asks if the boy is doing well physically. Todd starts describing the boy's high nose bridge, jewel-like eyes, and smooth skin with way too much enthusiasm. Reifenhart realizes with horror that this mage is a total creep. He seriously considers beating him up right there. Luckily, Sillin walks over and asks if Reifenhart is hurt. Our boy tells him to check on the orc porters instead. Sillin moves to heal them, but the orcs try to refuse, insisting that they aren't in pain. A soldier laughs at this, asking why the priest is wasting energy on monsters. Our MC observes that while Sillin is kind enough to heal them, he treats them more like injured stray dogs than actual people. Just then, Stefan shouts at our guide to get moving. Reifenhart forces a smile and leads the way. A few hours later, the soldiers are complaining. They can't understand why a tiny mountain is so packed with monsters. A sly smile crosses Reifenhart's face. The reason is simple. Instead of taking the safe, winding path, he led them in a straight line, cutting directly through the most dangerous territory. He might look like a warrior right now, but at his core he is a mage, and mages value efficiency over everything else. Finally, they reach the destination. Stefan looks at the ancient ruins of Palton with greed in his eyes. Todd confirms the mana flow indicates the entrance. Stefan turns to Reifenhart and coldly tells him his job is done and he can leave. Our MC protests, pointing out that the forest is crawling with monsters and he will die if he goes back alone. Stefan nods, saying that since the guide worked hard, they will protect him on the way back. This only annoys our protagonist more. It implies that if he hadn't been useful, they would have just left him to die. Stefan then gives a rousing speech about finding the great demonic sword Altian, and the knights charge in with a battle cry. After the knights head off, Reifenhart focuses on his own mission. He knows these ruins were originally a military logistics base from the Silver Age. He waits for the coast to clear and enters the dungeon alone. Walking through the halls, nostalgia hits Reifenhart with full force. In his past life, he explored these ruins with Cirrus. He remembers the two of them whispering about secret paths and sharing stolen moments in the dark. He was pretty shameless back then, flirting with a dark elf right in the middle of a danger zone. He places his hand on the wall to input the ancient password sequence involving Libra, Aqua, and Terra. He tries to channel his mana, but it is a struggle. His current body is built for smashing, not complex calculations, and his muscle brain barely processes the formula. Eventually, the mechanism clicks and a secret door slides open. Reifenhart immediately takes off his coat and carefully folds it. There's no way he's ruining a jacket that cost him 10 silver coins. Now shirtless and looking like a Greek statue, he prepares to test his new body's limits. Suddenly, he hears screaming. He is confused. The knights went into the basement, so why are the screams coming from the secret path? Then, the realization hits him. By opening this secret back door, he triggered the military base's trespassing situation protocol. The mana system just activated all the security measures to stop any visitors. In the past, he and Cirrus were stealthy, so it wasn't an issue. But right now, the Altian group is stumbling around in the main hall. Reifenhart realizes that he just accidentally dumped the entire security force right on top of them. After the floor collapses, the group finds itself deep inside the dungeon. While healing the injured knights, Salon thinks to himself that he must keep everyone alive to serve as his protection. He thanks Todd, as the whole group's survival was entirely due to the mage's protection magic. Todd replies that while they avoided the fall, he is not sure they can survive in the depths of the dungeon. Suddenly, a huge demon appears, causing the soldiers to panic. To regain control, the priest buffs the knights with a courage spell that turns them into mindless berserkers. Todd watches this in horror, wondering just how much divine energy the priest pumped into those poor guys. The mage also tries to attack the demon with his iron steel magic. However, his casting pose looks totally sus, and even the demon looks shocked. The metal blades just bounce off the monster's skin without doing any damage. Lelsia tries to fight the demon in close combat, but the monster sends her flying with one hit, and she slams into the wall. Before passing out, she weakly asks if she was helpful, and Stefan gives her a quick "yeah, great job, whatever," before jumping back into the action. The young lord actually manages to take down a monster, which raises the spirit of his soldiers. He tells everyone to get themselves together because they are standing at the place where their legendary ancestor, Sir Claude, was once defeated. Suddenly, a new massive monster covered in flames falls from the ceiling and starts crushing the soldiers. Seeing this, Stefan thinks to himself that he cannot lose here. He attacks the fire demon with his shooting strike move, but his sword passes through the monster's body like smoke. The demon hits Stefan in the face, knocking him out instantly. Scylla tries to fight back with attack magic, but this only makes the demon angrier. Just as the monster is about to crush the priest, a massive dude steps in. It's our boy Reifenhart. He blocks the attack with his bare hands and kills the demon with a single hit. Even our MC is surprised by how easily it died. He realizes his new body is so ridiculously strong that it's a miracle he even survived a single hit from the original Teslan in his past life. After looking around at the wounded soldiers, Reifenhart decides the best move is to get everyone to safety. As more skeletons begin to attack from the darkness, Todd watches our boy in shock, wondering who he really is. Riffenhart picks up the unconscious Lelsia and clears a path through the army of monsters by striking them, allowing the group to reach a safe area. Stefan wakes up with a massive headache and sees that all the monsters in the area have already been defeated. The knights are stunned, and Sir Edward explains that their guide is actually a powerful martial artist. Stefan tries to stay cool and approaches our MC with a mix of respect and noble pride. He asks for his name, and the protagonist calls himself Reifen to make sure Todd doesn't connect him to the famous mage from the tower. But the respect doesn't last long. As soon as Stefan finds out Reifenhart isn't from a noble family, his attitude changes instantly. He gets rude and looks down on him, saying that the commoner just helped finish a fight the knights had already mostly won. Our MC doesn't take the nerve of this guy well. He pushes Stefan's hand off his shoulder and gives him a reality check, telling him that actually the young lord was the only one who was completely useless. This starts a heated argument. Stefan is offended and asks who taught Reifenhart his skills. Our MC just says he picked it up here and there. In his mind, he knows he can't mention Master Gerard because his teacher is world famous. Plus, he doesn't want the old man finding out what he's up to. Reifenhart tells the noble to stop asking questions and go take care of the injured soldiers instead. Sir Edward thinks to himself that our boy talks with the natural authority of a high-ranking royal, completely ignoring age or social status. He begins to suspect Reifenhart might be a secret prince from another country. Then we have Scylla, who approaches the MC like a total fanboy. He asks for Reifenhart's height, and our boy tells him he's about 192 centimeters. Scylla is practically glowing with admiration. We find out the priest's tragic backstory. As a kid, he was a pretty boy who got bullied constantly. He spent his whole life dreaming of a muscular body, but puberty basically ghosted him. No matter how much he trained, the only things that grew were his hair and divine power. Because of this, he now looks at Reifenhart like a muscle-bound idol. Our boy tries to sneak off to find the hidden treasure, but Stefan insists on following him. The young noble thinks he'll use the next monster to put this cocky bastard in his place. But things don't go as planned. Every time a demon appears, Reifenhart knocks Stefan out so fast the poor guy doesn't even see it coming. While the young lord is taking forced naps, Chad clears the monsters and finds the secret treasure room. He loots 50 gold coins and some high-tier items, including the limitless bag, which reduces the weight of anything stored inside. Every time Stefan wakes up, Reifenhart blames the monsters for hitting him in the back of the head. By the time they leave, our boy has had to knock Stefan out 3 more times to finish the job. As they rejoin the group, Scylla is curious about Reifen's background. He notices that the MC even talks down to Sir Edward, who is well over 40. Reifenhart realizes he needs to be more careful. Since he's only 22 in this life, he shouldn't be so casual with his elders. The group eventually enters a massive boss room and comes face to face with a Grellbeast. Reifenhart doesn't remember this monster being here and suggests they retreat, as the party is too weak to fight it. However, the knights spot the beast's weapon, the demonic sword Altian. Stefan refuses to run, declaring that he will reclaim his family's sword even if he has to fight the Grim Reaper himself. He orders his men to raise their swords for one final stand, while Reifenhardt simply thinks to himself how incredibly foolish they are. It turns out this dungeon is way more dangerous than anyone thought. The ancient ruins have a glitchy defense system that basically kidnaps supernatural monsters from other dimensions and forces them into unpaid labor as security guards. Even worse, once a monster fuses with the dungeon system, it becomes way more powerful. Reifenhardt realizes they are facing a high-ranking demon that once took down a legendary aura user. This isn't just a regular monster, it's a creature from a different dimension. Despite the obvious danger, Lord Stefan looks at the chained monster and calls his men cowards for hesitating. Reifenhardt tries to give Sir Edward a reality check, explaining that they have zero chance and will all literally die. But the old knight chooses honor over common sense, claiming some things are worth dying for. Reifenhardt can only watch with a disappointed face as the knights charge in. As the battle starts, Sillin buffs the group, but it barely helps. The demon starts tossing knights through the air one by one. Our MC watches the chaos, noting that while Stefan is an annoying brat, he's actually doing a decent job of flying like a butterfly to avoid death, even if his attacks are just tiny scratches. He also realizes he underestimated Lelsia. She's actually the second most skilled person in the group. Just as Reifenhardt thinks the party might have a slight chance, the demon enters its second phase. The chains break and the monster goes berserk, easily smashing Stefan into a wall. Then comes the fire breath. Reifenhardt has to jump in at the last second, using his own body to shield Sillin from the flames. At this moment, our boy feels a shift in his mindset. As a former mage, he would never take a fight he couldn't win. But as a warrior, he feels a thrill he never experienced in his past life. He decides it's time to stop overthinking and follow Master Gerard's golden rule. When in doubt, strike first. The duel begins, and the demon's blade actually leaves a small scratch on Reifenhardt's skin, something even steel swords couldn't do. The monster lands a heavy blow that sends him flying into a wall, but he stands right back up, totally unfazed. Sillin watches in total shock, wondering if he's witnessing a legendary aura user in the flesh. Reifenhardt realizes that his training with Master Gerard has given him a bad habit of parrying and dodging instead of just tanking hits and counterattacking. He decides to use this fight to refine his technique. Meanwhile, Stefan is drowning in pure jealousy. He's losing his mind trying to figure out how a lowborn with no family name can use aura, while a high-ranking noble like himself is still stuck in the noob tier. The battle with the Grellbeast continues, but for Reifenhardt, it's no longer a fight for survival, it's a training session. He realizes the monster heals instantly because the dungeon is feeding it mana. This makes the demon the perfect unkillable sandbag. Our MC uses the opportunity to practice his joint locks, air combos, and striking techniques, treating the terrifying boss like a gym workout while the knights watch in confusion. Eventually, Reifenhardt decides he needs to wrap things up, but he can't use his strongest move, Calamity Horn, or he'll bury everyone alive. Todd yells at him to cover his sword in aura to finish the job, but Reifenhardt has to admit he has no clue how to do that. His clan only uses aura to turn their own bodies into weapons. Hearing this, Sillin steps in with a crazy idea. He casts Holy Striking, a divine spell meant to harden metal weapons straight onto Reifenhardt's body. Our MC thinks the priest is insane for treating a human like a sword, but it actually works perfectly. Empowered by the buff, Reifenhardt unleashes a combo of punches that obliterates the demon. Sillin is now Reifenhardt's #1 fanboy, but Stefan is another story. Bruised and beaten, the noble approaches, accusing Reifenhardt of hiding his strength just to sneer at the knights. Reifenhardt calmly replies that he never sneered, mostly because he doesn't care enough about them to even have an opinion. But Stefan just can't stop catching L's. As our boy turns to leave, the noble tries a pathetic surprise attack from behind. Reifenhardt doesn't even notice, he just bends down to pick up a sword from the floor, causing Stefan to slice the air and tumble across the room like a total clown. Our boy just shoves the demonic sword at the embarrassed noble and tells him to take the damn thing. Sir Edward admires his generosity, while our boy just thinks the weapon is second-rate trash anyway. Back at the village, the group splits up. Sillin heals the locals for free and hands out gold coins. It's not just kindness, it's a massive PR move to make the Holy Order look good. Meanwhile, Stefan rides off, telling Sir Edward they need to investigate this Reifen guy, still refusing to admit that a commoner could be stronger than him. Our boy heads out to find Cirrus, but realizes Sillin is following him. The fanboy has decided to become a pilgrim, so he can travel with the strongest warrior he's ever seen. Reifenhardt suspects Sillin just wants to stare at his muscles, but he lets him tag along. Having a high-level cleric is basically like having a walking first aid kit, which will be great for Cirrus. The scene then shifts to a luxurious mansion. A spoiled noble named Beret is screaming at his staff because a girl he recently purchased refuses to submit. We see an elf sitting on a bed with a downcast look, and it's not hard to guess that this is the same Cirrus our boy has been searching for. Beret yells that she is a defective product and demands she be sent back to the auction immediately. Reifenhardt and Sillin finally arrive at the Chetan Principality, the trade capital of the continent. This nation is entirely money-driven. It was literally built by merchants who bought the land from a neighboring kingdom. As they walk through the busy streets of Zeppelin capital, they witness a wealthy merchant beating a poor man in broad daylight. A fat dude named Tariq is assaulting a beggar, claiming he's teaching him a lesson. After the beating, Tariq casually tosses 30 gold coins at the man, stating that since he hit him 30 times, they are now even. The fanboy is horrified and rushes to help the victim, even suggesting they call the police. However, the old man just smiles as he picks up the coins, saying this much money is enough to help him finally set up a place to live. Reifenhardt explains that in this city, money solves everything, even the law. We then see the source of this corruption at the Rolafane trade union. Tariq is chilling with his elves when Beret walks in. You can immediately feel the tension. Beret is clearly embarrassed and doesn't want to admit he failed to break the spirit of Cirrus. Tariq mocks him for his failure and decides he's going to buy that slayer himself, just to flex on Beret. Meanwhile, at the inn, the fanboy is trying to work out. He's struggling with push-ups but uses healing magic every time his muscles get sore. Reifenhardt realizes the poor kid has been resetting his muscles to factory settings for 5 years. Since muscles need microtears to grow, Sillin's magic was basically deleting his progress in real time. Our boy asks if it's annoying to work out with such long hair, and the fanboy explains that even if he cuts it, it just grows back way too fast. Reifenhardt decides not to push him further and announces that he finally has enough money to visit the auction. They head to Elfenheim, a high-end center for these captives. Elves are top-tier merchandise due to their beauty and long lifespans, but their prices vary. A fully trained adult slayer is valued at 800 gold, while a regular female elf goes for around 300. Interestingly, there is almost no demand for male elves because they often end their lives. Very young elves are much cheaper simply because they take forever to grow up. It's actually a common joke among traders that a foolish merchant will die of old age waiting for a young elf to mature. Reifenhardt is angry that the auction is named Elfenheim, which means paradise of elves. He realizes that any kingdom built on force and fear like his own dark empire in his past life is destined to fail. He silently vows that this time he will build a proper nation where all species can actually coexist. When the merchant finally arrives, he apologizes for the wait and brings out a group of beautiful elves to showcase. The fanboy immediately covers his face in embarrassment, unable to look. Not seeing the person he's looking for, Reifenhardt asks if they have a dark-skinned elf. The merchant remarks on his unique taste, while Sillin whispers in shock. He can't believe that after lecturing him about how horrible slavery is, Reifenhardt is now asking for someone with such specific preferences. The merchant then tries to give them a tour, showing off how well the elves are treated. We see groups of elves performing strange dances by a fountain or preparing fresh food. Reifenhardt cuts him off with a look of pure disgust, telling him to stop with the details and just take him to the one he asked for. They enter a guarded room where the younger fighters are kept. Inside, we see several elves training and sparring with swords. Our protagonist's eyes immediately lock onto one specific girl. As he looks at the elf, tears begin to stream down his face. He has finally found Cirrus. We get thrown straight into a flashback where our boy is in an alchemy lab, busy mixing ingredients. Cirrus begs him to stop, warning that those two shouldn't go together. But boom, a massive explosion turns the room upside down. Instead of freaking out, Cirrus just wipes the soot off his face. Even though he was an old man back then, she actually thinks his clumsiness is cute. The memory shifts to a darker moment, the fall of the Demon King's castle. Reifenhardt stands on the balcony watching his empire burn and says his final goodbyes to his closest subordinates. He notes that the entire continent has united against them, over 2 million troops. It's basically all the military power humanity has, and they are willing to ruin their own nations just to win this one battle. The orc general Tathid says this just means the humans can't accept their existence and asks if Reifenhardt will leave with them, but our boy refuses. He explains that he's staying behind to hold off the enemy so they can escape. He apologizes to the dwarf Alpoth for failing to finish the mission despite the oracle. He tells them he hopes they meet again and tells Cirrus she needs to leave too. The others bounce, but Cirrus isn't having it. She refuses to leave his side. She screams that she'll wait for him no matter what. And right as the world is falling apart around them, they share a final goodbye kiss. Back in the present, we see a young Cirrus holding nothing but a roll of papyrus, sparring against a group of elves armed with real swords. The merchant explains that she is a defective product who has already been returned 3 times because of her terrible personality. He asks if Reifenhardt still wants her, and our MC immediately says yes. Seeing this, the merchant figures Reifenhardt has some weird tastes and decides to rip him off, hiking the price to 300 gold coins. The merchant thinks he's slick, but little does he know, our boy would have emptied his entire bank account just to get her back. Once the deal is done, Reifenhardt takes off his fur coat and wraps it around her. Realizing she doesn't have a name yet, he gives her one. Cirrus Valencia. She just answers with a dry response. Understood. Even when he introduces the fanboy Sillin, she gives the same robotic answer. A short while after they leave, the wealthy merchant Tariq shows up at the auction house, intending to buy the elf for himself. However, the owner gives him bad news. She was sold just an hour ago. Tariq is furious, asking if Beret figured out his plan and bought her back. The merchant shakes his head, explaining it was a stranger, a young man he'd never seen before. Tariq asks for a name, but since the guy paid in cash, there's no record. The owner describes our boy as a huge, muscular guy, basically a 6'4" Chad that you can't miss in a crowd. Meanwhile, Reifenhart takes Cirrus shopping for clothes. As they walk through the city, the elf is deeply confused. She sees Reifenhart acting all nice, treating her like a human girl and buying her expensive clothes. She concludes that he must be a weirdo who enjoys role-playing as a hero traveling with a beautiful swordswoman. To play along with his fantasy, she agrees to call him Sir Reifenhart. They eventually stop at a famous restaurant called Redante's Grace, and Cirrus starts inhaling her food like she hasn't eaten in weeks, which, let's be real, is probably true. While Reifenhart is chatting with Sillin about the religion of Philinance, he glances over at Cirrus with a warm smile, just happy to see her enjoying the meal. But the second she notices him looking, she goes cold and stops eating. Seeing this switch, Reifenhart realizes the painful truth. Right now, he's meeting her as a buyer, not the savior from his past life. But he knows she just needs time, so he decides to be patient. Later, they stop at an outdoor weapons stall. When Cirrus reaches for a rapier, Reifenhart accidentally slips up and asks, "Don't you usually use a scimitar?" Cirrus shoots him a look of pure irritation, wondering how this random stranger knows her habits. It gets awkward fast, but Sillin quickly saves the day, claiming that a master martial artist can tell a person's weapon just by looking at their hands. But just as they're wrapping up, a group of well-dressed, armed men approaches Reifenhart, saying they need to have a little chat. The leader, a man named Romad, states that an individual of noble status desires the female elf and demands our boy sell her to them. He simply replies that he isn't interested. Romad tries to push, hinting that the kid is making a mistake, but our protagonist just repeats his refusal. Realizing intimidation won't work, Romad backs off. Sillin, having no clue about the danger, just laughs and remarks what a funny man that was. We then cut to a luxurious mansion where the true villain is revealed. It's Tarek, the fat merchant noble from earlier, and he is furious that Romad returned empty-handed. Romad explains that he couldn't just beat up our boy in public with so many eyes watching. It would violate common ethics. Instead, they come up with a dirty plan. They will wait for the right moment to kidnap Cirrus, then lie to Reifenhart that she died and offer him compensation money to smooth it over. Tariq loves the idea and orders Romad to take Cerlantes, a dangerous assassin. It's time for him to earn his keep. Back at the inn, our boy is sitting on his bed, staring at a huge pile of gold coins. He realizes he has about 1,500 gold left, more than he expected, but not enough to rebuild an empire. He decides that carrying heavy bags of gold is inefficient. He needs to invest. Accessing the memories of his past life, he recalls that the Provence kingdom is about to be hit by a devastating famine next spring. Reifenhart decides to invest in the grain market before the disaster strikes. He considers the 3 major trade unions. He immediately rules out Rolifane because in his past life their leader was a pervert who abused Cirrus. Instead, he chooses the Taban trade union, the 3rd largest competitor, which specializes in grain. The scene shifts to the Taban office, where the leader Civil Taban is stressing out. The rival union is undercutting their prices, and they are on the brink of bankruptcy. His assistant rushes in, saying a visitor wants to invest 1,500 gold. Civilt is shocked. That kind of cash could save them. Our boy walks in and drops the gold on the table, demanding to invest all of it into grain futures for the Provence kingdom. Civilt looks at him like he's insane. He warns Reifenhart that selling grain to that kingdom is like selling soap to orcs. It's a pointless investment that is definitely gonna flop. Reifenhart cracks a joke that orcs would actually be good with soap once they got used to it, but then gets serious. Cyvolt tries to be an honest businessman and advises him against it, but our boy threatens to take his money elsewhere. Desperate to save his union, Cyvolt agrees to the deal. Before leaving, he adds one condition. He needs the union to use their branch near the MAGE tower to investigate a specific person. In a brilliant 4D chess move, our MC is hiring them to investigate himself, or rather, the version of Reifenhart that exists in this timeline's records, to see if his cover is safe. Meanwhile, in the training courtyard, Cirrus is practicing with daggers. Her movement triggers a heartbreaking flashback. We see a young Cirrus listening to her mother explain that high elves were once guardians of the forest, living under the world tree, but the memory turns dark. Fire consumes their village, and Cirrus is captured. We see snippets of her tragic life. The only thing that kept her afloat was the sword, because it was a reminder of her parents who died fighting with dignity. Back in the present, Cirrus finishes her move, and tears stream down her face as she whispers something in Chinese about her pride. Scylla interrupts the moment, fanboying over how cool her moves were. Cirrus wipes her tears and tries to be humble, but the wholesome atmosphere is shattered instantly. Dark silhouettes appear under the archway. It's Ramad and his squad. He steps forward and tells Cirrus to come with them to her true master. Scylla shouts at the men, asking who they are, but Ramad coldly replies that it's pointless to scream. They've already blocked off the area, so no one is coming to help. When the fanboy yells that he won't sell Cirrus, one of the mercenaries snaps that the kid is annoyingly loud and swings a sword right at his neck. But Cirrus is faster. In a split second, she parries the attack with her dagger and slices the attacker. Before the others can react, she takes down 3 more mercenaries, leaving them unconscious on the floor. Ramad is stunned. He didn't expect an elf to move like that. Scylla tries to cast a spell, calling on his god to strike the disrespectful ones, but Ramad throws a dagger at him to interrupt. Ceres saves him just in time, pulling him away from the dagger's path so it hits a tree instead. Ramad sneers, saying no one will care if a young priest kid gets killed in the middle of the fight. Realizing his men are useless, Ramad brings out the big boy, a massive orc named Takata. The orc steps out from the shadows, apologizing to Cirrus in broken common tongue. He attacks and Cirrus immediately realizes she's in trouble. The orc is incredibly strong and she's fighting with a tiny dagger because she left her main scimitar in her room. Takata tries to grab her without leaving marks, jabbing his blade at her face before switching to a sharp strike from the left that Cirrus barely dodges. Seeing that she can't win a contest of strength, Cirrus decides to play a dangerous game. When Orc swings his sword down for a heavy strike, Cirrus doesn't dodge. She stands her ground. The Orc panics and at the last second, he pulls his punch to avoid killing her. Cirrus knew he would do that, so she smiles and uses that opening to slash him. It was a massive bluff, but it paid off. Scylla, seeing an opening, asks if Cirrus can block flying daggers while he casts a big spell. She says probably once, and that's good enough for him. Ramad throws another dagger at the priest, but Cirrus deflects it perfectly. Free to cast, Scylla yells out a hilarious prayer and a massive explosion erupts, kicking up a huge cloud of dust. The fanboy tells Cirrus that since his magic only hurts demons and undead, the explosion was mostly just to kick up dust and buy them time to run. Cirrus grabs Scylla by the scruff of his neck, throws a sword into the wall of a nearby building to use as a step, and parkours all the way up to a 5th-floor window in one go. Ramad screams at his men to chase them, but they are too slow. Suddenly, a new figure steps forward, the elite assassin, Sir Lantus. He mocks Ramad for failing to catch a mere female elf, even with an orc warrior. Deciding he needs to earn his paycheck, he asks where she went. Ramad points to the broken window 5 floors up. Without hesitation, the assassin jumps from the ground and lands directly in the window in a single leap. Ramad is terrified, realizing this guy is an aura user, a warrior on a completely different level. Walking through the corridor with a smile on his face, the assassin simply says, "I miss this. Hide and seek." Inside the inn, Cirrus and Scylla are sprinting down the hallway. Scylla wants to go back to the room to grab their equipment, but Cirrus warns him there are enemies everywhere. Just then, a guard blocks their path. Without wasting a second, Cirrus delivers a flying roundhouse kick to his head, knocking him out cold. Realizing they have zero time to get dressed properly, they grab their essential gear, and Scylla casts a spell to hide their tracks and presence. Outside the room, the assassin Lantus scans the area using his aura abilities, which basically give him wall hacks. He can sense the movement of living beings within 30 meters. He is genuinely surprised that the kid managed to hide their presence like a high-ranking cleric. Confirming his suspicion, he kicks down the door. Of course it's empty. Ramad rushes over asking if they got away. The old man replies that they couldn't have gone far and orders him to release the hounds. Meanwhile, Cirrus and Scylla are running for their lives, avoiding people on the streets. The fanboy is gasping for air, his stamina hitting 0. He thinks about giving up, but a terrifying memory pushes him forward. He remembers a formidable female knight from his past. He realizes that if he gets captured here, he'll be dragged back to her. The thought of facing that woman is worse than death, so he forces his weak body to keep moving. Scylla questions where Reifenhardt is, saying our boy would have solved this by now. Desperate to find him, Scylla casts a spell called the Crossroads of Fate. Ironically, this magic is usually designed to help lovers find each other, but right now it's their only GPS to locate the big boy. Following the magical guidance, they arrive at a quiet spot near the gate. Cirrus looks around and asks if this is the right place, and Scylla confirms that they've arrived. But Cirrus suddenly stops. That's not Mr. Reifenhardt. Lantus steps out of the shadows with a cruel smile. Gotcha, kids. Thanks to you, I got quite a workout. Cirrus realizes that turning their backs to run means instant death. There is only one option, fight. Cirrus launches a furious attack, but the old man parries her strikes effortlessly. He compliments her, noting that her skill is far above a typical elf slayer. Scylla watches in shock. He realizes this man isn't just a thug, his movements belong to a renowned knight or a swordsman. Deciding to go all in, Scylla casts a whole bunch of buffs on Cirrus to boost her stats. Lantus is genuinely surprised. Stacking that many sacred spells at once is something only a bishop-level priest could do. The fanboy happily brags that he was quite the figure in the south of Vasily. Cirrus attacks again with terrifying speed, but the bastard just sighs and finally activates his aura. In an instant, he shatters Cirrus's weapon and slashes her. Cirrus collapses, unconscious. Romad arrives, praising Lantas for the capture. Scylla goes pale and immediately recognizes him. Lantas von Kalpenard, a famous knight from the Taikon kingdom who awakened his aura in his late 30s. However, he had a hideous secret he couldn't share with others. He had an unspeakably horrific fetish that began with elves and escalated to humans and eventually even reaching out to nobility. Thus, he became the greatest disgrace of the Taikon kingdom. Now, he works for the Rolafane trade union, doing their dirty work. Lantas turns his attention to Scylla. He decides to silence the priest. Without even touching him, Lantas projects his aura to strike Scylla's pressure points, severing his tendons. Romad warns Lantas not to damage the elf, but Lantas doesn't care. He looks at Scylla and smiles, saying that the cleric is pretty good looking and he wants to take him along too. He reaches out to grab the boy, but Scylla somehow manages to force his broken body to stand up, holding his dagger, and before things could take an even sharper turn, boom! Suddenly, a massive explosion rocks the alleyway behind them. Through the smoke, a furious figure steps forward. It's our boy, Reifenhart. He looks at Lantas, Romad, and the unconscious Cirrus, his eyes burning with rage. As the dust clears, our boy just walks through the hole in the wall, completely ignoring the enemies around him, and heads straight towards Scylla and Cirrus. The old man watches him closely, realizing this isn't just some random kid. He feels a massive aura coming from him. But what confuses him is that he can't figure out the level at all, which usually means the opponent is also an aura user. Romad tries to explain that this is just the buyer, but the Lantas isn't buying it. He's convinced Reifen must be a master in his late 30s who just happens to look young. Our boy calmly hands his coat to Scylla, thanking him for protecting Cirrus. The old man finally speaks up, admitting it's been a while since he met someone this strong. Reifenhart looks at him with pure disgust, telling him to stop pretending to be a knight when he's just a dirty, perverted old geezer, and dares him to attack. The bastard smiles like a maniac and draws his sword. Our boy doesn't wait. He attacks first with his bare fists. They clash right off the bat. The dude is literally blocking a blade with his bare hands, and the impact sends shockwaves that just demolish the whole place. Romad's men are terrified. One suggests running away, but Romad yells that they'll die if they get caught in the crossfire of this insanity. While Scylla heals Cirrus, she stares at the fight in disbelief, asking if Mr. Reifenhart was an aura user all along. The fanboy is just like, huh, didn't I tell you? Meanwhile, the old man is freaking out inside his head. Reifen's skill is way too high for a beginner. The bastard tries to do the math, either this kid awakened his aura in his teens or he's 40 with a baby face. But neither option makes sense. Our boy is equally frustrated, wondering why this dirty pervert is so strong and precise with a sword. After a furious exchange, the old man jumps back to create some distance. He asks if Reifen is a disciple of the martial king. Our boy stays silent. Then the assassin makes a mistake and asks why someone so strong cares so much about a slave. That was the wrong button to push. Reifen snaps, demanding to know who he is calling a slave. He yells that those slaves have emotions and wills of their own, while the bastard just dismisses it, claiming it's natural for humans to rule over other species. We see inside Reifen's mind. He realizes this is the deep rot of humanity. He yells at the bastard, asking what makes humans better than elves. Lantas argues it's the natural order. Our boy hits back, asking why descendants of great fairies should be slaves, and suggests that if humans didn't rule, they could have been the slaves instead. Reifen remembers history. When humans enslaved orcs, dwarves, and elves, mankind cheered. He realizes that permitting slavery eventually leads to things like serfdom for weak humans too. He warns the old man that this ideology will come back to bite them. Lantas thinks he's lost his mind, shouting that elves can never be equal to humans. Our boy decides he's done talking. He corners the assassin, and for the first time, fear flickers in the bastard's eyes. Reifen delivers a devastating punch straight to the gut. The impact is so brutal that blood spurts from the old man's mouth, and he is launched backwards, smashing through the brick wall and flying into the next building. Standing in the middle of the mess, Reifen swears that he will change it no matter what, so that no one can ever call Cirrus a slave again. Watching this, she stares at him with wide eyes and says the only logical conclusion, is he insane? She thinks he must be a crazy bastard. His speech about elves not being slaves sounds like nonsense to her. Just how deep into role-playing is this guy? She wonders if he's really just a helpless pervert or something else entirely. The old man Lantas is pinned under the rubble. He starts begging for his life, swearing that he will reflect on his sins. Reifenhart admits the guy looks sincere, but he hates the Sire Holy Order because they forgive everything as long as you confess at the temple later. Lantas tries to convince him not to kill, saying there's no need for our boy to dirty his hands with a pathetic loser like him. The Chad coldly replies that dirty blood has already stained his hands. He then turns the logic around on the assassin. If Lantis truly repents, he must believe he deserves death for what he's done and needs to pay for his sins quickly. The bastard realizes he's cooked. Reifenhart delivers the final blow, telling the old man not to throw the word repent around so lightly. Now that the dust has settled, our boy checks on the team. Salon, being the pro that he is, has already healed everyone. Reifen jokingly calls him the best first aid kit, leaving the priest confused. Then Cirrus actually speaks to him, asking if his body is okay. Our boy is screaming with joy, while Cirrus thinks, what a weirdo. Then the fanboy notices Romud and his remaining goons trying to sneak away. Reifenhart calls them back with a terrifyingly polite tone. He wants to know who gave the orders. When they hesitate, our boy simply pulls out a magical club and mercifully beats them until they talk. Through swollen faces, they finally spill the name. Tariq, the leader of the Rolofane trade union. Hearing that name, Reifenhart remembers this is the bastard who abused Cirrus for 10 years in the original timeline. He had wanted to kill him back then, but the guy had died comfortably in his bed before Reifen could get to him. Not this time. Ramad warns him that touching a union leader will make him an enemy of the Chutan Principality, but our boy doesn't care. He leaves the mercenaries in their birthday suits out in the freezing cold, technically keeping his promise to let them live, and heads out. The scene shifts to Tariq's mansion. The fat merchant is waiting for news with Beret, wondering why Lantis is taking so long. They hear noise outside but ignore it. In reality, Reifenhart is tearing through the guards, complaining that it's actually harder not to kill them. Meanwhile, the fanboy is cleaning up the mess with magic. Our boy notices this, and points out that Sillin is literally just using a heartbreak healing spell to blur their memories. The priest smoothly replies that physical beatdowns also count as emotional trauma, adding that without his tricks, Chad would have left way too many witnesses. They are eventually blocked by an orc warrior named Takada. Reifen asks why a warrior would protect trash like Tariq, but the orc insists it is his duty. Cirrus steps forward and tells him she will handle this one herself. Our boy agrees, tells Sillin to watch her back and walks straight past the orc, telling him to respect his actual opponent. Hearing this, the orc actually accepts that logic and lets him through. Reifenhart reaches the doors to the inner room. He pushes them open and is immediately hit by a weird smell and the sight of blood on the walls. Inside, Tariq is totally zoned out, asking who the hell is interrupting him. Our boy has seen a lot of filth in his 2 lives, but this scene pushes him over the edge. He walks in, and there's this weird purple mist coming out of a magical cauldron. Yeah, I'm pretty sure what's coming out of this thing is not going to be the chill blue bro granting 3 wishes. And man, the scene is totally messed up. 2 elf girls are lying unconscious on the floor. Tariq and his friend Beret are completely clueless. Tariq starts yelling for his guards and asks our boy how much money he wants, thinking he's just some hired thug from a rival merchant. He even promises to double the price, but the Chad isn't there for money. He looks at Tariq with pure disgust. He remembers how this guy abused Cirrus for 10 years in the original timeline. Reifen just walks up and punches him straight in the stomach. The fat guy drops, whining about why this is happening to him. Our boy lands the final punch and finishes the guy off. Right then, Cirrus and Sillin show up at the door. Cerise mentions that it was a pretty brutal takedown, but Reifen and Sillin both agree the guy deserved even worse. The fanboy says he's used to seeing stuff like this since he's an adventurer. He also points out that Cirrus completely wrecked Takada outside. Our boy uses his aura and realizes the orc is still alive, even though he took a beating. Meanwhile, Beret is freaking out. He looks at Cirrus and recognizes her. Cirrus points to the elf on the floor and asks if he was the one who ended her life. Beret doesn't even deny it, just asking what she's gonna do about it. Well, Cirrus doesn't waste time talking. She pulls out her sword and ends him right there. Fast forward a bit. The group is out in a snowy forest around a campfire. They gathered all the surviving creatures, 7 elf women and 9 male orcs. Takada is hanging out with them too. He tells Cirrus that since she broke his sword, he serves her now. While the elves are hugging and talking in their own language, Cirrus is quietly thinking that maybe she completely misjudged our boy. Then Reifenhart finally shows up. He apologizes for taking so long and shows them the contracts and Tariq's official seal. Sillin asks how he found them, and Reifen casually mentions he just ripped a safe out of the wall. Sillin calls him a barbarian, and our boy accidentally slips up saying he hasn't been called that in his 50 years of life. Yeah, he's acting a bit too careless. Reifen looks at the slaves and tells them they are now free, but the poor guys are just sitting there totally confused. They don't even know what the word freedom means. They think it's just a complicated order from a new master. Our boy realizes that just throwing them out into the wild would be a disaster. They have nowhere to go, so he decides to stamp the contracts himself. By legally owning them on paper, he guarantees they have a safe place to stay for now. The scene switches to Sivolt Taban's office. The guy is panicking because Reifenhart just walked in with a whole army of orcs and elves. Our boy tells him to just hide them and keep his mouth shut, joking that if the secret gets out, Savolt will be the only suspect. Then Rifen dumps 100 gold coins on the table. Savolt's eyes pop out. He definitely knows the Chad just robbed the mansion. Savolt says he has a safe place outside the city where they can stay, but 100 gold is way too much just for room and board. That's when Reifenhart drops the real plan. He tells Savolt the money isn't just for hiding them, it's to pay for their education. He wants them to learn reading, math, history, philosophy, medicine, and of course how to smash that like button on this video.